Hello, boys and girls. Got another video for you fine folks on the internet. Another installment today in the Matthew Buckley Talks music series. Looking at another singer-songwriter, mostly acoustic singer-songwriter collection here of, spoiler alert, kind of downer songs. This is an introduction to Elliott Smith, released in 2010 on Domino Records for worldwide Europe, UK distribution mostly, and Kill Rock Stars for US distribution, and UMG International for further worldwide distribution. And it was actually also issued concurrently on P-Vine Records as a Japanese import. But it was issued on vinyl by Kill Rock Stars, and first reissued 7 years later in 2017 by UMG International on vinyl for worldwide issue. And so then finally, recently, this is the very recently released 2021 Kill Rock Stars vinyl reissue. It was apparently concurrently issued with a Barnes & Noble limited edition red and black split vinyl. But a little background for anyone who might not be familiar with Elliott Smith before we get into the introduction to Elliott Smith. Born Stephen Paul Smith, August 6th, 1969, in Omaha, Nebraska, to a father who was studying at the University of Nebraska Medical Center and a mother who taught elementary school music classes. His parents separated in his infancy, and when his mother moved to Duncanville, Texas, he was brought with. He reportedly had a difficult relationship with his stepfather after his mother remarried, and he was also uninterested in his family's involvement with their local church communities. By adolescence, Smith had picked up piano and acoustic guitar, and his interest in music was nurtured by various amateur musicians in the family. At age 14, Smith moved to Portland, Oregon to live with his father, who had since started working as a psychiatrist. And this must have been a period of serious self-discovery and creative exploration, such for young Smith, as he began indulging with drug and alcohol use, as many adolescents do. And he also began to experiment with recording tools and techniques for the first time. He began forming bands with classmates and self-recording a handful of cassette tapes. After graduation, Smith moved to the East Coast and attended Hampshire College and befriended songwriter Neil Gust, with whom he formed the band Heat Miser. After graduating in 1991 with a degree in philosophy and political science, they moved back across the country to the West Coast, and the duo recruited Tony Lash, a high school friend of Smith's, and began gigging in the Portland area, recording and releasing 3 albums and an EP between 1993 and 1996. Through the efforts of his then-girlfriend, a demo tape of songs Smith had been recording was sent to Cavity Records, who, much to his surprise, were interested in releasing the entire tape as an album, which became Roman Candle, Smith's debut solo album, released in 1994. And the album was, again, much to Smith's surprise, warmly received, in spite of being so much the opposite of the popular hard rock and grunge of the early 90s. Smith mostly self-recorded and released a self-titled album in 1995, and tensions in Heat Miser were created by Smith's desires and efforts to have a solo musical career, and the group disbanded prior to the release of their final album in 1996. The following year, Smith released Either Or, which would go on to become one of his most celebrated works and a cult classic in its own right. Probably my personal favorite album of his. Apparently, at this time, Smith began abusing antidepressants in conjunction with his already serious alcohol use, and friends of his actually staged an unsuccessful intervention shortly after his tour promoting the Either Or album. His life becoming increasingly frenetic and stressful, Smith moved to the East Coast. It was in this time that Smith was tapped for the soundtrack of the Gus Van Sant film Good Will Hunting, to which he contributed 6 songs to the soundtrack. And one of which was nominated for an Academy Award. He subsequently made his first major network television appearance performing on Late Night with Conan O'Brien, which was followed up days later with a performance at the Oscar Awards ceremony. After his breakout success, Smith signed with DreamWorks Records, but in spite of commercial success, critical acclaim, and bigger funds from a bigger record label, Smith's mental state was in decline. He openly spoke about considering suicide, and made at least one attempt in which he threw himself off a cliff. His fall was apparently broken by a tree, which apparently also injured him severely. His next album, XO, was written and recorded over the next year, and released to sales that doubled his previous album. He made a handful of international television appearances and promotion, and the following year he moved back to the West Coast, taking up residence in Silver Lake, Los Angeles. The final album completed in his lifetime, Figure 8, was released in April of 2000. Partially recorded at famed Abbey Road Studios in London, the album was both praised for its evolution in songwriting and production. Definitely steps up from certain lo-fi stylings of his day, of his earlier work, but it was simultaneously criticized for changes in his style and approach. A large-scale tour was organized in conjunction with promotional spots, but Smith's condition, mental, emotional, and physical, were in steady decline. He had begun using heroin at the tail end of the Figure 8 tour and was slipping into textbook paranoia. He claimed that he was being followed. When friends would give him rides, he would ask to be dropped off well over a mile from his destination. He openly spoke about fears that his own record label was out to get him, and believed that DreamWorks sent people to break into his house and steal files off of his computer. His diet deteriorated, and his sleep schedule was just as dysfunctional. After already abandoning sessions for his 6th album once, in 2000, Smith began working with multi-instrumentalist and singer-songwriter John Brion, and had completed, in his words, more than half of a record before Brion stepped away from the project and ended his friendship with Smith as a direct result of his substance abuse. Depressed over losing a friend and stalling on the project for a second time, Smith scrapped all the work done thus far. In a meeting with the label after receiving a bill for the abandoned sessions, Smith complained of intrusion upon his personal life from the label and poor promotion for his previous album. He went so far as to warn the label that if they didn't release him from his contract, he would take his own life. Smith made efforts for a 3rd time to self-record his 6th album, but according to friends and collaborators of the time, he was ensnared in a hard drug habit that cost literally thousands of dollars a day. He still openly spoke of contemplating suicide and allegedly tried to overdose on more than one occasion. His public performances were scant for the next year and a half, and any he did make were poorly received. Near the end of November 2002, Smith and his girlfriend were actually arrested after a brawl at a Flaming Lips concert. Smith had attempted rehab several times, but found himself unable to believe in the 12-step program for treatment. he would go to the Neurotransmitter Restoration Center in Beverly Hills, coming off of various psych meds. At the end of January 2003, Smith actually played 2 sold-out acoustic concerts in Hollywood at the Henry Fonda Theater, hoping to reestablish his credibility as a live performer. And the shows were positively received. And that summer, after his 34th birthday, Smith committed to giving up alcohol. He began to experiment with noise music and computer recording, seeming to indicate a new period of creativity in his life. However, only a couple of months later, in October, tragedy would strike again. After a late-night argument, Smith's girlfriend claimed she was taking a shower when she heard Smith scream. After leaving the bathroom, she found Smith with a knife in his chest. She removed the blade and called 911. Smith died at the hospital about an hour later. Though there was an alleged suicide note with his name misspelled, I will not get into all the conspiracy theories regarding his death, and will simply state that the autopsy was not entirely conclusive. In 2004, Anti-Records and Smith's estate elected Rob Schnapf, who had worked with Smith on his first aborted attempt to record a new album in 2000, and one of Smith's ex-girlfriends, multi-instrumentalist and Joanna Bohm. They were drafted to complete production on his unfinished project, which would see release that October as From a Basement on a Hill. Another posthumous collection, New Moon, was issued in 2007, a double album of outtakes and alternate versions of songs, and there have been tribute albums, documentary films, biographies, and picture books published in the wake of his passing. Smith has been lauded as one of the most influential artists in the modern era of music, inspiring a generation of self-recorded bedroom artists and lo-fi producers. Film producers and directors as well have utilized the emotional power of his music, keeping his memory and music alive in the public consciousness almost 2 decades after his passing. So, let me get a little sip here before we go any further. Sip of tea for the working man. So side 1 of an introduction to Elliott Smith opens with Ballad of Big Nothing from the Either Or album, and released as a single in June of 1998, peaking at number 83 on the French charts and reaching number 182 in the UK. The lyrics tell a wistfully veiled tale of a drug addict's misadventures, being up all night and down every day, or buying candy from strangers, culminating in the irony-drenched chorus of "You can do what you want to, there's no one to stop you. You can do what you want to, though it doesn't mean a thing. You have complete freedom, but what you've done with it amounts to nothing." Tragic. The instrumentation is strong, a catchy driving guitar riff, and propulsive rhythm section. Positively propulsive rhythm section. The song was definitely a good choice for a shot of radio play. The next track, Waltz Number 2, parenthetical, XO, was released as a single the following September in the wake of his 4th album, XO. It peaked at number 52 on the UK singles charts as Smith's star continued to rise. A vague recount of tensions between his mother and stepfather, exemplified through recollections of them singing old 50s love and heartbreak songs. He concludes with the chorus that he'll never truly know her or feel able to reach her on a meaningful emotional level, but he'll love her anyhow. In the 3rd verse, there's an interesting line about looking on the substitute scene, which can be interpreted various ways given that his mother was a school teacher. And in earlier versions of the song, the line, "XO, Mom," was actually sung as "I love you, Mom," but Smith felt that wasn't subtle enough. And as the coda wears on, strings bring the intensity up a notch, and this has been rightly regarded by some critics as one of Smith's finest compositions. The next track, Pictures of Me, it was released on the Either Or album in 1997. It's one of my favorites of his, and it's almost Dylan-esque in its lyrical style. You know, comparisons, allusions, and tongue-in-cheek wit throughout. One of Smith's many derisions of the costs of fame. You know, as he sings, "Everyone's dying to get the disease." According to collaborator Larry Crane, there was some stylistic influence from 60s pop band The Zombies as far as Smith's composition. Quite interesting, I think. The following track is "The Biggest Lie," which was released on Smith's self-titled 1995 album. One of the more depressing songs on the album, which is a statement of itself. This song is basically a conversation prior to suicide. Smith sings about waiting for a one-way subway, describes himself as a crushed credit card, makes allusions to Goldschlager, and ends the third verse with the heart-heavy lyric, "We're so very precious, you and I, and everything that you do makes me want to die." Oof. And then comes the repeated coda of "I just told the biggest lie." Heavy stuff. The next track is "Alameda," which originally saw release on the Either Or album. It derives its name from a street in Portland near where Smith lived in his adolescence. Smith sings about walking down the street, staring at the cracks in the sidewalk, thinking about friendships, and worries about the strength and longevity of those friendships. The chorus explores the concept of avoiding attachment altogether, avoiding the pain of heartbreak and loss by avoiding connection and bonding in the first place. If you're alone, it must be you that wants to be apart, as he sings at the end. Oof. The next track, "Between the Bars," is also from the Either Or album, and is a uniquely directed composition, written as if Smith himself is being sung to by his alcoholic beverage, as though it were some sort of seductive temptress, calling him baby and urging him to forget the pressure of his day and drive away the images in his head of promises and goals he's made, things he could do, as he sings, "You won't, but you might." The bottle promises to keep at bay the memories of Smith's past actions and his perceptions of his past selves, but at the end of each chorus and the second verse, it assures him it will keep the memories. The following track, "Needle in the Hay," was released in January 1995 as the lead single from his self-titled June 1995 album. Both because of the style, the lyrical content and musical style, I've always felt that this song owes something to the style of Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground. A somewhat detached and disaffected delivery on a song about being poor and trying to score hard drugs. Interestingly enough, by all accounts, the song was written and recorded before Smith was ever a regular user of heroin. It provides a bleak but musically strong end to side one. And side 2 opens with "Last Call," which was released in July 1994 on the Roman Candle album. It begins with some wailing vocals from Smith and sharp guitar, more reminiscent of Smith's work with Heat Miser than the rest of his solo work. This is another real depressing rocker, alternating between, it's very unique the way his writing style, you see this in a lot of songs, alternating between first, second, and third person in the verses, uniformly deriding whoever is being sung to. And all the negativity and self-loathing expressed throughout culminates in the repeated coda, "I wanted her to tell me that she would never wake me." And I'm lying here waiting for the sleep to overtake me. You know, some of these songs are really hard to dig deep into, honestly, because it's just so fucking depressing and openly suicidal in some cases. But you know, it's beautiful tragedy. Take a sip here. Another sip for the working man. So, the next track, Angelus, also released on the Either Or album, is decidedly less harrowing and heartbreaking, instead detailing Smith's reservations and anxieties about dealing with the big shots and cutthroat culture of Los Angeles and the music industry and fame and all that it entails. He explicitly refers to the evils of the industry and its empty promises to satisfy the wishes of artists and the like. He concludes the song with the debatably tongue-in-cheek lyric, "So glad to meet you, Angelus." Lyrical content aside, it is a beautiful song, instrumentally, a very pleasant listen. And the following track, Twilight, was originally released on the posthumous album From a Basement on the Hill in October 2004. One of the harder hitting and more directly literal songs of his catalog. It details a situation in which Smith meets someone who makes him forget his troubles, looks pretty, treats him well, but he's already somebody's baby. There's more to dissect in the verses throughout, but I'll simply jump to the tragic sentiment expressed in the final verse. And if I went with you, I'd disappoint you too. The song is another gorgeously arranged tragedy, a truly beautiful backdrop for a downright depressing feeling. You may be noticing a theme. The next track, Pretty, parenthetical, ugly before, was released as a limited edition 7-inch vinyl single in 2003 by the Suicide Squeeze record label. And it was re-released in 2004 by Domino Records in conjunction with the release of his posthumous album, From a Basement on the Hill. It reached number 85 in the UK that time around on the UK singles charts. One of the clearest interpretations of the song is a person dependent of substance use to maintain their sense of self, their feeling of self-worth, feeling pretty for another hour or two while they can stay high. Tragic and harsh, but real, even somewhat relatable. There's also a really great, but also kind of short guitar solo before the last verse. It's got very emotional playing. The next track, Angel in the Snow, was recorded during the sessions for Smith's self-titled second album, but remained unreleased until the posthumous album New Moon in 2007. An acoustic anecdote about, again, drug addicts and their relationship. Soft and sweet sounding to portray the content of the song. And the following song is actually an early version of Miss Misery, which is best known for being featured in the closing credits of the popular 1997 film Good Will Hunting. This early version was released on the posthumous New Moon album in 2007. It seems to be, the song is a relatively straightforward tale of unrequited love in the face of heartbreak. Smith sings about faking happiness through the day with alcohol, feeling hungover and hung up on someone he dreams of being with again. Desperate enough to seek guidance from fortune tellers, palm readers, and tarot cards. The signs point to no, but he doesn't want to believe it. The feeling of futility in the face of heartbreak is driven home with lyrics like, "And though you'd rather see me gone than to see there come the day, I'll be waiting for you anyway." That refusal to give up on reuniting with someone in the face of hopelessness and heartbreak is reiterated again at the end of the last verse. "I cry to see when you talk to me the day you said we were through, but it's all right. Some enchanted night I'll be with you." Oof. This is an incredible and heart-wrenching song. That's all I'll say. The next track is the original single version of Happiness, which was released in February 2000 as the lead single from his then upcoming album Figure 8. The album version was notated to include a following separate piece of music in the track that follows the song. The single mix features an entirely different following piece of music, which apparently dates back to one of Smith's high school recordings. In spite of being a troubled tale of two people who Smith sings made their lives a lie so they might never have to know anyone in a very catchy hooky chorus, the song has one of Smith's most optimistic and hopeful coda sections. What I used to be will pass away, and then you'll see that all I want now is happiness for you and me. And reverse guitar sounds fade in and out of the sound spectrum as the album comes to a close. End side 2. Let me take another sip of tea here for the working man. So, final thoughts. This is a fantastic, if unapologetically depressing collection of songs from one of the most troubled yet gifted singer-songwriters of recent history. These are essentially all 5-star songs, in my opinion. You know, they are accomplished musically, stylistically diverse, ranging from soft solo acoustic performances to full produced rock band arrangements. Themes of relationships, heartbreak, insecurity, and unglamorous themes, if that's a word, of unglamorous themes of drug abuse and dependency are explored, all in brutal honesty. His struggles notwithstanding, Elliott Smith was a songwriter's songwriter. And I love this album and all the songs on it, but with some of these songs, peeling the layers back and trying to get to the heart of what it's supposed to be about can be absolutely dispiriting. It's... oh, man. You know, it's hard enough to have your own personal thoughts bleeding into the music and coloring a song with your personal experience, which is inevitable. But to read on and on of the dismal state of affairs in Smith's life while he wrote and recorded this music, some of it in particular more than others, it's been a somber experience, to say the least. But let me get y'all, without some glare, a closer look at this fine album cover. A nice portrait of Smith wearing a Commodore shirt. Fairly basic back cover, just the track listing. For some reason, the copy I bought had 2 hype stickers, so I put one hype sticker on the front and one on the back. It comes with a nice insert here that's another, basically, the biography. So if the biography that I gave at the beginning wasn't good enough for you, don't worry, you get another one in here. And then you get the track information, what album they're from, publishing credits, who's on what. Yeah, very good stuff. And this isn't the original sleeve it was in, but I put it in the black sleeve because I felt that would be appropriate for Elliott. It's got a fairly basic label. Again, just the title, catalog number, songs. Nothing too wild in the design, but hey, it's, you know, straight and to the point. What matters is the music. So, I definitely, like I said, love this album. This is a fantastic collection. It can be a hard listen if you're in too emotional a state yourself, but no, it's so quality. You can't go wrong. So I don't hesitate to say that this introduction to Elliott Smith is a 10 out of 10 album, easily. 10 out of 10. It's been on heavy rotation for me the last over a week now as I've been preparing for even before I was preparing for this. It's been a somber time in my life as well, so this has been very good, medicine for my soul, very good heart food, whatever you want to call it. But yes, definitely a 10 out of 10 album, whether or not you're down. It's great music, great songs. The human experience is well represented in this stuff. So, I've been rambling for quite some time here. I think this is over a half hour now, so let me know in the comments below. Have you heard this particular collection, An Introduction to Elliott Smith? Are you familiar with Elliott Smith? Have you already been introduced to Elliott Smith through some other means? Let me know down below in the comments what you might have to say about your experience with Elliott Smith, if you've got any. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I appreciate the viewership, and keep checking back, because I'll get more for you next time. This has been Matthew Buckley Talks Music with an introduction to Elliott Smith. Music is the best.